Welcome to Hey, it's Carly Rae's Book Club. This is Book Hour where authors will talk their latest novels, reveal their writing process, and play some fun book games. I'm your host, Carly Rae. Today, we have international best-selling author Wendy Walker. We're going to be talking about her latest novel, Don't Look for Me, finding out where she got the idea to craft the character of Molly Clarke, if writing thrillers was always her passion, and see when we will get more Wendy Walker thrillers. Plus, we're going to play a game of Trivia Thriller Edition and Table Topics. We'll dive in right after this. Hello, Wendy. Tell us where you're joining us from.
Hi, I am here in Connecticut in my makeshift office, studio, living room.
Now, Don't Look for Me is your latest thriller novel, and here we have a close-up of the intriguing cover. Newsweek calls this novel a twisty, hair-raising tale. Pop Sugar calls it compulsively readable, while New York Times best-selling author of The Woman in the Window, A.J. Finn, calls it addictive. How does it feel to get that sort of reception on a novel?
It's been amazing. This book has really resonated with people, and it's just been a phenomenal response, so I couldn't be happier.
Now, in your interview with WFSB, you said this wasn't a traditional missing persons book, that we could follow the character of Molly Clarke on her road of knowing where she was the whole time. For those viewers who haven't read Don't Look for Me, tell us more without giving away spoilers.
Sure. So Molly Clarke, it's no secret, she goes missing, and she is abducted. So you learn that pretty much in the first couple of chapters. But what I decided to do was to have a split time frame and two narrations. So one of the time frames and narrations is Molly Clarke, the night she disappears, and you are with her every hour of every day that she is being held captive. And it's not like a gruesome captivity of torture or anything like that. She just is not free to leave where she's being held. The other narration is her daughter, Nicole, and it starts 2 weeks later when they get a new lead that makes Nicole think that their original theory, which is that Molly had walked away on her own, is not true, and that her mother may actually be in need of help. So she returns to this small town to search for her mother. So it's an untraditional missing persons case in that it's not all about just finding where this person is, because the reader actually knows where she is.
Yeah. Now, there are many rattling twists in Don't Look for Me. Was this novel hard to write, or once you got the concept, it all came together quickly?
It came together fairly quickly. I knew the structure. I knew who the bad guy was. There were a few pieces I didn't know and a couple of pieces that changed. So it's hard to talk about them too much without giving away spoilers, but it definitely required a lot of plotting, because Nicole's chapters where she goes back to the town to look for her mother is really based on her search. So she's talking to people in the town, uncovering secrets, getting a lot of conflicting messages and information from this very insular community that you can just tell they're hiding secrets from each other and from her. So that required a lot of plotting and putting in place the clues so that the reader could really enjoy the roller coaster ride of figuring out where Molly was in relation to her daughter and who was holding her captive.
Now, did you watch like a lot of thriller movies for inspiration, or?
I'm trying to think what I did for this one. I try not to look at other people's work to give me inspiration, because I don't want to end up losing my own voice. I don't want to end up obviously copying someone's ideas.
Yeah.
So, but I do watch a lot of thrillers, in particular series, and I actually watch a lot of Agatha Christie type series, even though that's not what I write.
Yeah.
So the clue building came pretty naturally to me from having, years of watching these mysteries and reading them as well.
Yeah. Now, back in 2019, when you were on CT Style to promote The Night Before, you said you loved bringing in real life issues into your novels. The Night Before, you brought in your experience with online dating and the deception inherent in the process. What real life issues did you bring into Don't Look for Me?
So this book actually started with a moment in my life that actually happened to me, and it involves the theme of walking away. So before anybody gets the wrong impression, I never thought about walking away from my life, but I did have a moment of just having such a bad day on top of such a bad year, really, and driving along a road where I put Molly Clarke in the book, in the first chapter, where I was unable to sort of get away from my thoughts. And they just went down this rabbit hole of, I'm not a good mother. I can't save my children from the harshness of the world, and everything's falling apart. And what have I been doing with my life? And just, a moment. I was having a moment. We've all had those moments. And I was at a gas station and I saw this road, and my mind was like, just had this flash, like to walk down the road. And it's similar to the feeling you get when your phone's not working and part of your brain comes in and says, throw it at the wall. And then the rational brain comes in and says, $700, all your pictures and data, the cloud might not be working.
Yeah.
And then you don't do it. And it's so instantaneous. And that's what this thought was. It was my brain's fight or flight mechanism saying, you are in emotional distress from your life. There's a road leading away, walk down it. It was not rational. It was driven by this emotional hijacking of my rational brain, which my rational brain quickly dismissed. But when I went home, I thought, I bet there are circumstances that are so severe and so emotionally powerful that when people have these thoughts, they actually stay and people act on them. And in fact, most missing person cases are the result of walkaway situations. So that's a huge theme in the book.
Yeah. Now, one thing I'm curious about is how you came up with the character of Molly Clarke and creating her whole backstory. Was that your inspiration, or?
Yes. So then I went home and I thought, okay, so I need everyone to be able to understand why she had this thought and she actually acted on it, because what leads to her abduction is that she walks away from her car in the middle of a storm on this back road and is then in need of help. And that's where everything goes wrong. So I needed people to understand and get on board with that plot, because it was just very important. So I sat down at my kitchen table and I thought, what is the worst thing I could do to this mother that would make her have this kind of emotional distress? And it was very hard to do because I am a mother.
Yeah.
And I was like, every time I thought of something, I was knocking on wood. And, it's very hard as a mother to write about anything going wrong with a child.
Yeah.
But that's also where our most vulnerable places are, anything to do with our kids. So I built up this whole backstory of her having lost a child 5 years before, and then being involved in the accident that caused that death, even though it was completely accidental and she could not have prevented it. But as a mother, she's been carrying that guilt and that grief, and her family has been unraveling as a result. So giving her that severe kind of trauma in her family life, I think, was necessary for readers to understand why she would feel that her family would be better off without her, and why she would be just at the end of her rope in terms of trying to survive.
Yeah. Well, you heard Wendy talk about her latest chilling thriller, Don't Look for Me. We'll be right back to find out if Wendy was always a fan of writing. Welcome back to Book Hour. I'm your host, Carly Rae, here with international bestselling author Wendy Walker. Wendy, some people might not know this, but Don't Look for Me was originally called something else in your mind. How does that process work, writing, titling the book, and it ultimately hitting the shelves?
It's a process, and every book is different. So because the original premise involved walking away, that was my title in my head, and of course you start going back and forth with editors and everybody on the team about titles, and there was something about just walk away that we weren't quite sure people would know what it was about, and so we had so many title. It was really hard to come up with a title. The cover was a one shot. I mean, they came up with a cover. We all loved it. And it's so interesting because the night before that, the title for that book, we all knew right away that was the perfect title. My editor came up with it. It was perfect. And then it took forever to find the right cover. So it's different with every book. And you're just trying to, you're trying to send a message of what the book is about. And not mislead readers as well about, so they think it's something that it's not. So I actually went back, after we came up with Don't Look for Me, I actually went back into the book and I wrote in to Molly's inner thoughts, and also in a note that is found near her disappearance, where she says, "Don't look for me," so that it would tie into the title. And a lot of authors do that. You come up with a perfect title and you're like, okay, I'm just going to tie that in a little bit stronger it's there with the themes, but I'm going to tie it in more directly in a narration or a piece of dialogue or something. So yeah, it's always a process to hit those notes.
And everybody watching will have to go and find where she mentions "Don't Look for Me" in the novel.
Yeah, it's this gas station. I have passed by it so many times, and it's as described in the book. I decided to just put her there because it was where I envisioned it. And then that's also where the idea for the town came in, because the towns along the river in Connecticut, some of them are really, really hurting. And so I took that concept of what would a really economically devastated town, what could it feel like and be like? So, yeah.
Now, were you always set on being a novelist?
No, in fact, I started out my career as an investment banker, and then I became a lawyer doing corporate litigation. And then it was when I took time off with my first son. I was going to be a stay-home mom for a few years, and I quickly realized that I needed an outlet, or I was going to absolutely destroy my child's emotional well-being, because I just needed something that felt like it was moving forward. And kids need to move forward at their own pace, and if you put that expectation on them, it's just not good for their development. So I, for whatever reason, decided to write a novel. And looking back, I think it must have always been in the back of my mind to do something creative involving storytelling, because this was the idea that came to me when I no longer was thinking about progressing in a career path that was well defined. I was giving myself permission to explore other possible interests. And so I pursued it for many years. Even after going back to practicing law, I still kept writing, trying to find the right genre and break through.
So it wasn't always thriller novels that you wrote?
No, in fact, my first attempt was a legal thriller, like a Grisham-esque legal thriller, because I was a lawyer and I loved I did always love suspense and thrillers. And then years later, after I got an agent and I'd finished that novel, it didn't sell. And by then I was really immersed in suburban culture and fascinated by the themes that I was seeing all around me. So I wrote 2 novels that were based in suburbia and really about women's lives. And they were not like funny books. They were more serious issues, but they were also, just about life. And those 2 got published, but they didn't sell that well. So I ended up going back to practicing family law. And that's where I got the training in psychology. So it was like the failure of those earlier books, plus, going back and getting this training in psychology, and then having my agent realize that I had that sort of edginess to be able to write in this thriller space and encouraging me to do that, all came together. And I wrote All Is Not Forgotten, which was my breakout novel. So that too was a process of getting to the right genre and the right sort of feel for me and what was going to work in the marketplace.
Yeah. Now, how many novels did it take? Like, did you have to write before landing an agent? What was that process first like? Like, did you write a ton, coring and everything?
Wow. Yeah. So I finished this legal thriller. It took me about 2 or 3 years. I revised it. I worked with a writing professor who told me all of the things I did wrong because I didn't know how to write a novel. I knew how to write as a lawyer, and I was pretty good at structuring and storytelling, but I didn't know how to use narration and dialogue and set the scene. And I didn't have those tools. So I rewrote the entire book after getting some tools. So, note to self, maybe get the training first next time I and go off on a new adventure. And then, yes, it was a long time ago. So I was at what was then Kinko's. For those of you who remember, Kinko's was a place to copy stuff. And I was 8 months pregnant with my third child. And I was, photocopying 80 packets of stuff because you had to send them out. It's snail mail, hard copy. And you had to include this self-addressed stamp envelope called a SAS. And it was for them to send you your rejection letter. And it was sort of like, I always laugh that it felt like, you were digging your grave, in like mob movies where they make you dig your grave and then they shoot you and put you in the grave you just dug. That's what the SAS is like. So, you're writing out your address and putting a stamp on this envelope, and it's like digging your grave. It was really, and then you have to mail them all out and wait 6 weeks, and it was tough. Yeah. But I found an agent that way. So yeah.
Now, if you could give one piece of advice to those viewers watching who are wanting to write like a thriller novel, what would it be?
Obviously get some tools in your toolbox. Like, make sure you know how to write a novel and not just know how to tell a story, because they are two different things. And there are a lot of resources online, which they did not have when I started out. Just know how to use dialogue, narration, the different points of view that you can use, like so much to learn. And then read in the genre. This is a commercial genre. So figure out, are you going to be an Agatha Christie whodunit author? Are you going to do a series with a cop or a psychologist or forensic person? Where are you going? Are you doing standalones? Are you going to be a twisty, psychological thriller writer, or are you going to be more about suspense or horror? Pick a lane that you want to be in for your story, because eventually you're going to have to explain it to an agent, and they're going to want you to use terms that they understand. You can't just say it's just a genre bending thriller. It might be that, but you have to be able to compare it to other things and say, this is, Gone Girl meets Woman in the Window or something. You have to be able to set the stage for your novel. So know what you're going to write, have an intention, and have the tools, and then just keep writing every day.
Well, you heard Wendy. Stay tuned, because when we return, it is game time.
Thank you for choosing Three Brothers Wineries. I'm Erica Policelli. I'm one of the partners here at the winery, and I want to tell you a little bit more about our estate. We were founded in 2006 by Dave and Luann Mansfield. We have 40 acres of grapevines, a fully operational farm. All of the wines you're tasting today are from our farm. We have 2 female winemakers, Kim Marconi and Paige Vinson. On our campus, we actually have 3 wineries and a microbrewery. We have an extensive portfolio of not only wine, but also beer, hard cider, wine spritzers, and wine slushy, all manufactured here on site. When we opened our doors in 2007, we had a modest staff of 10. We've grown to employ 40 full-time and 100 part-time employees. We pride ourselves on creativity, innovation, and our company culture. When you make a purchase from Three Brothers Wineries or Warhorse Brewing, you're supporting a majority women-owned small business, and we thank you for that.
We are back with Book Hour, and it is game time. Wendy, we are going to play a game of trivia to test your thriller knowledge. I'm going to ask you questions from booktopia.com, and we're going to see if you can answer them.
Oh my gosh. Okay, here we go.
All right. First one is, what is Sherlock Holmes's famous street address?
Oh my gosh. I don't know. I have no idea.
It is 221B Baker Street, London.
Oh, I never would have gotten that.
All right. The second one is, which I think you may get it, is which iconic detective novel contains the famous quote, "Dead men are heavier than broken hearts"?
Oh my gosh. I don't know that either. Isn't that awful? I have a horrible memory. Okay.
It is The Big Sleep by Raymond Chandler. Okay, now the third one I'm pretty sure you get because it is about Agatha Christie. So it says, what is the first name of Agatha Christie's famous detective, Inspector Periot? Pretty sure that's how you pronounce it.
I don't know that either.
Starts with an H. It's a Disney character.
Oh my gosh.
He's strong.
I honestly don't know.
It's Hercules.
Hercules. Oh my gosh. Isn't that terrible? Ugh.
All right, the last one. Which Gillian Flynn book was recently adapted as an HBO miniseries?
Oh, that would be Sharp Objects.
Yes,
Yay, I got one.
So the last one, so you got one out of four, but one's better than none.
Better than none. Yep.
All right, now we are going to play a game of table topics. I'm going to ask you hypothetical questions from conversationstarterworld.com, and then you're going to give your answer. All right, first one is, if you could be a CEO of any company, which company would it be?
Oh, Apple.
That's a good one. All right, the second one, if you could be invisible, but it would be permanently invisible, would you want to be?
Oh, no, not permanently.
Yes.
But it's a superpower that I always choose when I'm asked about superpowers.
Is to be invisible?
Yeah.
Yeah. 3, what movie-worthy heist would you pull off if you knew in the end you'd get away with it?
Ooh, I probably, Ocean's 13 or one of those. Yeah.
Yeah, I was definitely going to say one of those too.
Money and George Clooney. I mean, you can't go wrong.
I know. If you were chosen to be the first human to make contact with aliens, what would you do?
What would I do? I would want to see what it was like on their planet.
And then last one is, if you could put a new word in the dictionary, what word would it be and what would be the definition?
Oh my gosh. Well, the word I'm thinking of is not, I can't really say it in polite company, but I'll describe it to people. It was on an Instagram post and it was called the blankening, and it begins with an F. And so you can picture what that is. And the definition of it was basically something that really messes up your life. And it was, yeah, that's yeah. I saw it on Instagram and it was so perfect. Yes, it was, it is a swear word, but it was just it described 2020.
Yeah. Well, that concludes our game time. Wendy, I want to thank you for being on Book Hour and joining us today. Before you go, tell viewers if we are going to be seeing more Wendy Walker thrillers.
Absolutely. I'm actually diving into, finally decided on the next book. And so I am researching it now, and once I start researching and plotting, it comes pretty quickly, but it will probably be 2022, I would think, by the time it comes out with COVID and everything. But you can, I definitely have my backlist. So this is my 4th thriller, and there's a brand new Audible novella. It's an Audible original called Hold Your Breath, which just came out October 1st. And it's a little spin-off of my debut novel, All Is Not Forgotten, but it's a standalone. So if you want to get a taste of what my other work is like, you can definitely start there. And it's a short listen, like a couple of hours. And then I have, my other novels that I've written if you're new to my work. And then, yes, there will be a new one. I can't say too much about it because I'm sure the plot's going to change, but it will have very much the feel of Don't Look for Me.
Now, if viewers want to follow you on social media, where can they find you?
So I'm on Instagram at Wendy Walker Author, and I'm same thing with Facebook. And on Twitter, it's just Wendy_Walker. And my website is wendywalkerbooks.com. So any of those places, and they all cross-reference each other. So if you get to one, you can find the others.
Well, you heard Wendy. Go and check her out now. All of her social media handles are in the description below as well. Wendy, thank you for being on Book Hour. And for those watching, I hope you have a great day.
Thanks for having me.